to talk about my first home. Believe it or not, that was back in 1981. I know you have a hard time believing that. But it was back in 1981, and I had my first job. It was all commission. I didn't have a salary. I didn't have a steady income, but I found a house I wanted to buy. And I was able to borrow the down payment from my mom, a small amount of money, which was about 10% of the purchase price. I bought the home. It was a 3-bedroom house. I rented out 3 bedrooms, and that made my mortgage payment, taxes, and insurance, etc. That made the whole payment. And I had a construction background through my dad, who was a building contractor. I built a room in the garage, and that's where I lived. But I was able to buy my first house. It appreciated. I sold it and bought my second house unassisted. Don't think that there aren't creative ways of doing it if it doesn't, if you're just picturing these traditional ways of buying a home. Now I'm going to let Karen tell her story, because hers is the traditional way of doing it, about fretting over it, worrying, saving all her money, and deciding how much of this can I give up, etc. So I'll have her tell her side of the story now.
So when I first bought my home about 5 years ago, when we actually started a year before that, we started trying to figure out, my husband and I, we first started trying to figure out how much we could afford. We were so conservative. We wanted to make sure whatever that payment was, or whatever that number was per month, that should something happen to one of us, we lose our job, or we can't work for a period of time, that we would still be okay. Once we had the price range down, once we had our loan amount down, and once we knew what area we had to be in, we basically drove those neighborhoods until we could find a house that fit our needs. I mean, the rest is basically history. We're still there. It's really done well for us, value-wise.
What'd you pay?
I paid $600,000. And it's worth about $800 to $825 today.
Wow, that's fantastic. So do the math. It speaks for itself. Does it make sense? And the reality is, what's your total housing expense on that?
About $2,400.
Okay, $2,400. That house today would probably rent for $3,000 plus.
Probably.
And it's going up.
Right.
Probably 3-4% a year.
Right.
The math speaks for itself. I'm going to tell you one more quick story. My daughter came to me last year. She wanted to consider buying up there. She lives up in Seattle. First, we knew that she couldn't do it herself, so we hooked her up with a friend's daughter who also lived in Seattle, works for Amazon up there, and combined, the two could buy together. Neither one could afford it separately, but the two could buy together. So believe it or not, they were able to qualify and buy a $710,000 property. Granted, the parents came up with the down payment with an agreement that, and a lot of parents can and will do this for their kids, but with an agreement that they will repay it once they sell the property or refinance, etc. That property went up in value in that first year $50,000, $60,000 minimum. And what's interesting about it is they were both renting, and their housing expense renting was about $1,800 a month. Now each one of their housing expenses are below $900 a month. And that $900, the bulk of that payment is interest and property taxes, which are tax deductible. And a big chunk of the payment is also principal reduction on the mortgage. So that $900 after taxes and after principal reduction probably costs them $500 a month. They basically cut their housing expense in half and have an appreciating asset in a better neighborhood than they were able to rent in. 3 totally different stories that I think are interesting to hear. Know that we're here for you, and that we will guide you through every step of the process, and we'll go at the speed that you want to go at, whatever speed that is. And that you'll end up at some point ready and willing and able to buy a home. And we are going to be excited to work with you and look forward to it.